Hi folks, this is Karim Rauf from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the COVID-19 lab. This is the 9th video. Have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have discussed an overview of the lab network and the domain topology. So we have discussed our network so far, the virtual machines that we have created, the IP addresses of these virtual machines, the network range for the whole network, okay, the domain topology. We have created so far one virtual machine, which is our domain controller and our DNS and our Windows server and a lot of things. And we have been discussing also that we will create a second virtual machine that will be a second domain controller and a second DNS server and a second Windows server, and it will be a file server and a WSOS and DHCP. And I've discussed the best practice for creating a domain controller, okay, and also it is a best practice not to install anything or any server roles beside the domain controller. So it is best practice to have your file server on a separate server, your DHCP on a separate server, your WSOS on a separate server, and leave the domain controller on one server only. Okay, we have discussed this in the previous video, and then we have created a virtual machine and we installed Windows Server Data Center 2022. And we have on this virtual machine two network cards, and we have make teaming between them, and we set static IP address on them after installing the operating system, of course. And then we have changed the name of the virtual machine to reflect our server name. And then we have installed the Active Directory domain services, and we are preparing the server to be an additional domain controller. And then we have an error appeared called bad DNS packet. This is an error appeared when I was promoting the server to be a domain controller, and I have searched the internet for a lot of solutions for this error, but at the end I didn't find anything useful. So I tried to change the operating system from Windows Server Data Center 2022 to Windows Server Data Center 2019, and actually it was a success, and the error didn't appear again, and I have successfully promoted the server to be an additional domain controller, but with an operating system Windows Server Data Center 2019 and not 2022. Please, if anyone has the same error, please advise me or put in the comments, because actually I saw a lab that the one making the lab had two virtual machines. One was a primary domain controller and the second was a second domain controller or additional domain controller, and both have Windows Server Data Center 2022 without any problem. So please apply the lab and see if the same error appears for you guys. Please put this or please type it in the comment section in the video, okay? And this was in the previous video. In this video we will begin, or we will complete what we have started. We have our virtual machine created, our operating system installed, our server is promoted to additional domain controller. Now we will begin installing a couple of programs and doing a lot of things to prepare the server to be an additional domain controller. So let's begin. Here is the video. Here we are. What I'm doing here, we have stopped at the minutes 36:31 seconds. Here what I'm doing here, I will install a couple of programs on the additional domain controller. We will install the PowerShell 7 as we have done in the primary domain controller, and we install the Firefox and the Chrome and the Classic Shell program, and we will do a couple of things. So just we are preparing the server to be exactly the same as our primary domain controller. I mean exactly the programs installed on the primary domain controller should be the same as or the primary domain controller programs, we should install it on the secondary domain controller as well. So we have typical servers with typical programs installed on both of them. So here I will go and get the programs. So here I have downloaded the PowerShell program. So here I have put it in the download section in my first server. So this is the PowerShell program. I will copy it. This is the source, so I will copy it and install it on my additional domain controllers. So we have both domain controllers will have PowerShell 7 installed on them. Okay, and then I will install another thing. So here I am going to my first domain controller departition, or my primary domain controller departition, and will copy some files from it and put it on my additional domain controller. So COVID-19 folder, it is the folder that contains all of my scripts that it is on the departition on my first domain controller, or my primary domain controller. So here we will install the PowerShell, and then we begin installing a couple of programs. And remember that in the first domain controller we have made custom event viewer views, okay, or event or custom event log views. So we will make the same custom event log views on our secondary domain controller. Okay, I will show you a simple program. We don't need to go to the event log and begin creating the custom view logs one by one. No, we will import the custom logs from our primary domain controller and put it in our secondary domain controller. So this will be simple. We don't need to make the logs from the beginning. So here is our primary domain controller. So we log in with my username. So here I think we can pass it real quickly here. So we'll go there. We have logged in with my domain account, which is Kera Off. This is the domain admin account. I think we can pass it also real quickly, so don't need to do all of this. So here we have gone a little bit further. So here it is. And remember, of course, after promoting the server to be the secondary domain controller, we need, and also the secondary DNS, we need to put the secondary DNS IP in the network connection of the first domain controller. Okay, and the same, and we need to put a couple of things, or we need to change a couple of things in the network connection setting on both domain controllers. So wait for a moment and we'll show you all what I mean by this. So now what you will do here, we need to check the programs installed, and here we will go to the event log, and then we will export the custom view logs that we have done on the first domain controller, and then we will import them on the second domain controller. So we don't need to make the custom view logs again from scratch on the second domain controller. Okay, I will show you all what I mean by this. So wait for a moment. So here I think we can go real quickly here. So here this is the event log, and this is our custom view logs, okay, or custom view log, event log views. We will export them one by one. So here we will export the custom view, and then we'll import it on our second domain controller. So we will export one by one, or we export the custom view logs one by one. Okay, so here we will make a folder, and then we will export our custom views in this folder, and then we will import them in the event log in the event viewer log in the second domain controller. Okay, custom event or custom view event log, and then we will export them one by one. So this is, we will make it, for example, give it a number. Okay, so here for example I type it as 1, so here we can go here. So here I have put as 1, this is the first custom log, and then we will export one by one, and then we'll export the second one, and we'll put it as 2. Don't bother yourself by the names, because when you import them they will appear by their name, so you don't need to put the name. Okay, here I will custom, this is the third custom view log. Okay, and then we'll export them one by one. Fourth one, and then we'll have the fifth one, and we have I think about 8 or 9 custom view logs. Okay, and then we have okay, and then custom view. Okay, this is the 6th one, and then we have the 7th one and 8 and 9. So we'll export most of the custom views, and then we will import them on our second or additional domain controller. This can be done on any server, so you can export your custom view logs and import them on any event log on any server. Okay, so it's only configured once. Okay, so here I'm just copying the folder of the scripts and the things, or my sources, or all of my scripts that are on my first domain controller, and I am having a copy of them on my second domain controller. So here we have finished. Now we will begin importing the custom view logs on our additional domain controller. First of all, we are restarting the server. So this is one. Now we can see that the changes or the group policies are applied. This is the welcome screen, and the theme is changed to violet. It was blue before, so this is the theme that we have configured in our group policy. The fixed theme, or the unified theme that we need to be applied to all our to all of our PCs and servers. So now we have most of the group policies are applied. And now we can see that the background, it is applied according or due to the implementation of the group policy, or the default group policy. And then we can see the English and Arabic keyboard layout. Okay, and then we will begin importing the custom view logs, okay, for our the custom view logs on our additional domain controller. Here I think we have, or I will install the Firefox on the additional domain controller. So basically I am preparing myself, or preparing my environment on my additional domain controller to be the same as my primary domain controller. Okay, also I will install the classic shell and the Chrome. So this is a lot of programs, and then we'll make a custom console. Okay, the same as we have done in the previous, or in the, we have done in the first domain controller, or our primary domain controller. So here first of all I will personalize my desktop. I just need the control panel icon to appear on my desktop, and the network icon, and my user profile files also to appear on my desktop. Here we can see that there is some differences between the server data center 2022 and the Windows Server Data Center 2019. Okay, so the menus are a little bit different. So here for example the desktop icons are on the theme. Okay, so here we can see it, and we tell him desktop icon setting. Then we need the user files, control panel, and network, so all of these to appear on the desktop, so to make it more easier. Now we need to install, I think I have installed the Firefox. I need to install the Google Chrome. Okay, so this is another program, and we need the classic shell also to be installed. Here we will go to the Chrome sources, or the Chrome installation file. Okay, this is the standalone, and we will use it later to deploy it on a large number of PCs in our domain. through using a group policy or using a program called BDQ. This is a very famous program for deployment of software. Here we can see we are installing the Chrome. It will take a little bit of time. Now I think still I need the program of the classic shell to be installed. This is another one. This is the background folder. So here I think I will go and get something from my laptop. Okay, so this is the shared folders between my laptop and my virtual machine. So here I will take a couple of files I need from the laptop. Okay, I think one of them is the yes, this is the 7-zip. This is the program of 7-zip. This is a program for compressing and decompressing files. So I need to install it on the server as well. I forgot to do it on the additional on the primary domain controller, but I will do it later. So now we have installed we didn't install the PowerShell yet, but we installed the Firefox. We have installed the Google Chrome, or we are installing the Google Chrome. We need to install the 7-zip and then install the PowerShell and then install the classic shell. Okay, and this is we are opening the control panel. I think we need to change the network connection setting. We need to put in the network connection setting of the additional domain controller, especially in the preferred DNS and the secondary DNS. We need to make sure that the preferred DNS is our first domain controller and the secondary is the IP of our additional domain controller. Here we are making a custom console by making right click and then run and then type MMC, and then we will make the same thing, or we make the same custom console we have done on our first domain controller. So here we will install the 7-zip. Okay, this is the 64-bit version. Install, and then this is our custom console. We will add the different consoles here. We will add the Active Directory, we will add the DNS, we will add everything we need, the same as we have done in our primary domain controller. This is the Active Directory, users and computers console, and then this is the DNS console, and then this is the event viewer console. We need it, okay, because we will open the event viewer and import our custom view logs, okay, to this event viewer console, or to event viewer, or import it to our event viewer on our additional domain controller. Okay, so we tell him okay, and then we will add the group policy management console. Okay, so we can manage everything from our additional domain controller the same as we were able to do this on our primary domain controller. So you will put the services console and the Wins console, okay, and the Windows Defender, because I think I need some configuration to the firewall. So anyway, we need the computer management if we need to see the disk or the hard disk of the server, if we need to partition it or do anything to it. So now we have our custom console. We will save it and put it on our desktop. But before that, we need to go to the Wins server and make sure the service is running, and we need to tell him that there is another Wins server. So we have a replication partner, which is our primary domain controller, which is in the same time acting as our primary Wins server. So here we will tell him that you have a partner, you need to replicate your data from your primary Wins server to your secondary Wins server. Remember that this is additional domain controller and it's acting as additional Wins server or primary or secondary Wins server. Here this is the partner, which is our first domain controller, okay, and then tell him to replicate. So now We are telling him that you have a primary Windows server and you need to replicate your data with this primary Windows server. Okay, here we can see that the DNS, everything is there. Okay, and we can see the DNS records, okay, or host A records. So now we have, I think we have installed the 7-zip program. Here we will open the network connection setting. As I said before, you need to make sure the network connection setting of the additional domain controller and then our TCP IP. You need to make sure that here the preferred DNS, it is the IP of our primary domain controller, which is the same time acting as our primary DNS, and the alternative DNS should be, just a moment, and the alternative DNS should be our secondary domain controller, which is in the same time acting as our secondary DNS. This is our field, and we need to go to advanced and make sure our WINS, okay, here we will go to the WINS, and here we make sure that our primary WINS, it's our it is listed, and the primary WINS is the same time acting as our primary domain controller. We need to check enable NetBIOS over TCP IP and to add our two WINS servers, our primary WINS server and our secondary WINS server, which is the same time acting as our additional domain controller. Okay, so we will add it 192.168.1.11, then add, and then OK. So here we have this done on the network connection setting on our additional domain controller. We need to do this on our primary domain controller as well. Okay, so we need to have the same setting done on our primary domain controller network connection setting. So we will go now. This is a very important step, okay, to make sure that both domain controllers can read and see their DNSs and their WINS, okay, and they are replicated. Okay, the DNSs are replicated and the WINS are replicated. So you will go to the network connection setting for our primary domain controller and go to our internet protocol TCP IP, and then we will add our alternative DNS IP address, which is our secondary domain controller or our additional domain controller IP, and then we'll go to the WINS and we will add our additional domain controller IP address, which is the same time acting as our additional WINS server or secondary WINS server. So now we have both server, they can see both of their DNSs and both of their WINS, and they are replicated. So we have both of them are exact replica. Okay, so here we have all of the setting done. Now we need to go and complete some configuration on our additional domain controller. So now we will import our custom view logs. So we'll go to the first, we will save the console on our desktop. We will name it as secondary console or something. Console 2, and then save, and then we'll go to the event viewer and import the custom view logs. But I think for this we need to install maybe something else. We need to install the classic shell. Okay, and remember we didn't install the PowerShell 7 yet, so we need to install it as well. So all of these, we are preparing the environment on our additional domain controller. So now we are installing the classic shell because we need to see the classic shell policy applied to it. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here now we will begin installing the classic shell. So why I'm installing the classic shell? To see the effect of the classic shell group policy. We have two group policies, one called classic shell admin and the other is called classic shell limited. This controls what the user can see from the options of the program of the classic shell. Okay, so we will install now the PowerShell 7. So here we install it next, and we will add a couple of options to make it available in the context menu. What I mean by context menu, when you right click on the desktop you can see a menu for the PowerShell 7. Okay, so this is the context menu meaning. So now we have a couple of programs installed and we have the custom console prepared or created. Now we need to import our custom view logs. Okay, now I think I am installing. Yes, I need to install also the Microsoft Edge. Remember that the Microsoft Edge, it is already included with the Windows Server Data Center 2022 operating system, but as for the Windows Server 2019 it is not included. So you'll go to the Microsoft website and download the latest Edge Edge software or Edge software browser, and we'll install it on our additional domain controller. So here we have typical software installed on both domain controllers. So now we will go to the Google and we'll get the English Google results, and then we will type, or we will add, or I think I'm now just testing if I have internet. Anyway, so I will close the Internet Explorer and open the Google Chrome and install or download the latest Microsoft Edge software. I think we can pause it real quickly just to not to bother you all. So here we go there again. Anyway, so we'll see. Okay, now we will go to the event viewer and we will import our custom logs. Before that we will copy the folder. So I have a folder on my primary domain controller. I have exported in it the custom view logs all. I have exported them there. So I will go to my primary partition, or to my D partition to my D partition in my primary domain controller and copy the custom view logs folder and put it on my additional domain controller D partition. Okay, now I have opened the Google browser, and then I tell him to download the latest Edge software. So Microsoft Edge MSI, I need to download the MSI files because I am intending to deploy it to a large number of PCs, and it is good to have the MSI file of the program because it is easier to deploy MSI files, okay, than to deploy .exe files. Okay, so here this is the Microsoft website. We will tell him we need to download the latest version of Edge, which is 89, the stable unsupported one, and the last build, and the platform would be Windows 64-bit. And then we can here after choosing the operating system tell him download the file, and we can also download the group policy. Okay, so this is better. So here we have we will download both the operating system, we download the software and the group policy. We download both of them. And then we will install the Microsoft Edge. Then we go and import our, so here is our custom views. We will right click and tell him import and go to the folder that contains the exported views and import them here. So here we will go to right click custom views, and then we tell him import custom view and go to the folder that contains the exported custom views from the primary domain controller event viewer. So we'll go to the D folder, the D partition, and the custom views event log, and then we'll import them one by one. Okay, we cannot choose a lot of them once, so we need to import them one by one. Okay, so open, and then we can see that it will give us the name access to shared folders or access to shared objects, the same name as that was on the primary domain controller. So we'll import them one by one. Then we will check every one of them to see if it will contain any logs. Okay, so here we are importing them one by one. So this is easier than configuring a custom view and begin configuring it from scratch. Okay, so here we will import all of the custom views. This is a good thing, so if you need to have this custom view on other servers, so this is a good thing. You can export the configuration of the custom view and import it on another event viewer on a server, on a workstation. This is according to your needs. Okay, so here we will import our different custom view logs and import 8. Okay, and then import number 9. Okay, so here if you can go to one of them, we can see it will contain some logs. Okay, so this means that the custom view log configuration is applied and the filter is applied, filtering the event IDs. So now we will install the Microsoft Edge. And this is the group policy of Edge. We can add them or add these templates to our group policy templates. So here we will go and add them to our group policy templates folder. We will add them here. I think we have it before, so we have it already, so we can replace it and update it if needed. Okay, now we will install the Microsoft Edge Enterprise. So now we can see, here we can see that there is some logs, okay, in our custom view. So that means that the custom views are working. Now we can see a lot of things. Or here is an error because there is not enough RAM, because the event logs displaying the event logs taking a lot of the RAM. Okay, so you can see an error here appearing. So I'm just checking if the custom view logs contain any logs. Okay, I think we can pass it real quickly here anyway, so can go there. Access to shared folders or shared objects. Here we can see that also it is recording the access to any shared files on our file server or shared folders on our file server. Okay, or what will be our file server. Okay, we didn't do anything, or we didn't install the file server role yet. Okay, but it is recording the access to a shared folder named sysvol on the domain controller. So it's recording any activity or any access to any shared folders. Okay, even though if you don't have a file server, any shared folder on any PC or any server. Okay, so we will take a snapshot. We name it before DHCP and file server and WSOS. So this is a snapshot before installing all of these server roles, and we have a best practice, as I said before, to have each one of these roles to be installed on a separate server. if you don't have a lot of servers, so you can install file server and DHCP on a server and the WSOS on second server, okay? And if you don't have, so you can install it as I am doing in the lab on our you can install it on an additional domain controller, okay, not a primary domain controller, but make sure that this additional domain controller contains a lot of, or have enough hardware resources to run all of these roles, okay? So here we will wait until the snapshot it is taken. It will take a little bit of time. I think it will take some time. I think the snapshot it is taken already. We will shut down the server and we will do a little bit of a trick in one of the virtual machines configuration. I think I will do it on the primary domain controller virtual machine. I will show you all what is the configuration that we will edit or will change. So now we are shutting down the additional domain controller, so we will shut it down, and we will have I configure a useful option when you power off the virtual machine, okay, that contains the primary domain controller, or that contains the primary domain controller operating system or the additional domain controller operating system. We will do, or we will let him, or we will configure the VM Workstation Pro program to tell us if we power off the virtual machine, if we need to take a snapshot. So this will be a good option, okay? So it will ask us when we power off any virtual machine created on the VM Workstation Pro if we need to take a snapshot of this virtual machine after powering it off, okay? So I will show you all how we will do this option. It will take a little bit of time, but let me do it little quickly here. So here we will shut it down. Here we can see that this is the option. We have configured it before. When we power off a virtual machine, we will tell him, he will ask if you need to just power it off, take a snapshot, or revert a snapshot. So this is a good option. We have configured it before, and I'll show you all how we can go to this option, or how we can do this option. We need to edit the virtual machine setting and go to some option here. I will show you all how this is done. Here first of all we will power off this virtual machine, or our primary domain controller. We will power it off as well, so it is powered off, okay. And here we go. So we go to the option. I will show you all. We can go to the option of telling the virtual machine or the VM Workstation Pro to give us a notification. Here we can see that power, and then think just a moment, not here, it's in the snapshots. So here in the snapshots, here in the snapshots, not this one, here this the snapshot. If we click on here we are telling him when he power off the virtual machine not to just power it off. We are telling him to let me choose, okay? So let me show you all what I mean by this. So ask me. When I tell him to ask me, if you go a little bit quicker here, so I tell him to ask me what to do when I power off the virtual machine. So when I tell him to ask me, he will let me choose one of the three: just to power off the virtual machine, or to take a snapshot, or to revert a snapshot. So this is a very good option. So if I forgot to take a snapshot, he will remind me when I power off the virtual machine to take a snapshot, or to revert a snapshot, or to just power it off. So this is a good option to tell them edit virtual setting and use this option, okay? So in the upcoming video we'll begin configuring the DHCP, the file server, the WSOS, and a lot of things. So hope this video is informative for you all, and I'd like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.